China has decided to postpone its biggest political event of the year amid ongoing efforts to contain COVID-19. The delay is reportedly based on careful consideration of the epidemic and in a bid to continue the efforts to win the battle against the epidemic and protect people's lives, health and safety, says the National People's Congress, China's top legislature, on Monday. Now, this is the first time the event has been postponed in its 22-year history. The National People's Congress Standing Committee on Monday also passed a proposal to comprehensively ban the illegal trade of wild animal effective immediately and stopping the bad habits of eating wild animal among the Chinese people. So what are the ramifications of these decisions and why should the rest of the world pay attention? Joining me in Beijing via Skype is Professor Wenping, a senior research fellow at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, and from Memphis, Tennessee in the U.S., Professor Josef Mahoney, Professor of Politics at East China Normal University in Shanghai. Welcome to both of you to The Point. Professor He, let me go to you. Help us understand the reasons, the possible reasons behind this very unusual consideration.
I think the reason is very clear. That is because this virus issue, now there are lots of focus has been put on this how to contain the virus. So I think this two searches, the searching has to be delayed because that can make all those concentration on the battle against this virus. And also this decision to ban this, the trade of the wildlife trade, I think is also timing and also very necessary because we all know the origin coming from this virus. Especially at this time, and also like go to the 2003, the SARS, all come from those wildlife, those eating, or some goes to the bat or some other those wildlife animals. So this is totally, I think, unacceptable to make the a similar mistake again and again and again. This should be banned completely. And also, this is a very, right decision to keep a harmonization between the human beings and the nature. So all the things, they have their own settling. So it's not saying, the wildlife it can be traded and it can be eaten.
Yeah. Well, a week ago, on the 17th of February, Business Insider, the media, published an article saying China is considering postponing the central event of its political calendar, an embarrassing admission that it has lost control of the coronavirus. Now, that was a week ago, and actually, from the numbers that we're seeing from the trend of the development of this epidemic, that report is clearly proven wrong because we're not seeing the virus going out of control. Basically, it's pretty much under control in China, and yet still this decision was announced yesterday by the Chinese government to postpone both the top legislature annual meeting and the top political advisory annual meeting. Professor Mahoney, how do you look at this decision by the Chinese government finally?
I think it's the completely irresponsible decision to make. On the one hand, we have to keep in mind that these are massive meetings. You have more than 5,000 people participating directly in both meetings. And, it's the top political leadership from all over the country, from every corner of the country, as well as the leading lights of industry, military, academics, technology, so forth and so on, minority areas. They're all coming together in one place. In addition to this, you have tens of thousands of people who are supporting the meetings in direct contact. So it would send a very irresponsible message at this time when people are being advised not to hold such large meetings, to have such a meeting. Secondly, the purpose of one of the key purposes of the meeting is the Premier's work report, which is generally a reflection on last year's accomplishments and challenges and what's going to happen going forward. And clearly, we're in the midst of an issue that hasn't been fully assessed, that hasn't been fully absorbed in terms of what's going to be done and what sort of policies need to be done. Right. There's a lot underway. There's a lot of things that have already been put out. But there's still a lot of work to do to get ready for the meeting.
Right. Actually, President Xi Jinping, in a nationwide meeting, he called the epidemic a crisis and a big test for China. That was on Sunday. So, Professor He, how much weight do you think these words carry? Because the Chinese government and in general, we don't normally call something a crisis so lightly.
Of course, I think this is certainly a big test. We can also use the crisis to describe it. So actually, during that conference, President Xi Jinping also mentioned now all the countries, now we have to work together, united together to win this battle against this coronavirus. So it has, we have seen a lot of doctors lost their life, and many, more than 20,000 doctors, nurses has been dispatched to Wuhan and to Hubei as a whole. So it is a test. It's a test coming from all kinds of ways, like governance issue, and also like the material providing system, and also how to organize from all the levels of those governments, from central level, provincial level, and even the county level and the village level. Yeah, because when you shut down a province and then goes to those cities, and it needs all kinds of systematic organization. So all kinds of even the people stay at home, get avoid to join those gatherings. So this is also a test to our economic issue, because now you can see all the entertainment and restaurant and even the movie, all that things, now they have been badly influenced from this test. So how to make sure China's economy will come back to the normal way and then maintain all those like 2020, this economic goals, that's a test also.
Yeah, well, 2020 is a big year for China, because China is supposed to finish building a relatively well-off society in an all-round way, and China is also supposed to complete its campaign to eradicate absolute poverty by the end of this year, a goal that was clearly set in November 2015. So, Professor Mahoney, given all of these important things that China is looking to accomplish, do you think delaying the two sessions will have an impact on China's socio-economic development?
Well, I think the proper focus is to say that the virus, as well as the broader global economic situation, probably have the more direct influences, and the meeting is more something that happens once we have a better understanding of what those things are. So clearly the virus, as well as the continued difficulties with trade with the United States, are major impacts on the capacity to eradicate extreme poverty, but also proceed with the hoped for pace in terms of structural reforms and maintaining growth rates. So those are some aspects, but as President Xi and others have pointed out, although there are substantial costs, and although we might somewhat optimistically begin to see a recovery in the second quarter, there are opportunities here. For example, one of the things that I would have expected, regardless of the virus, to appear in the Premier's work report, are the efforts in the People's Bank of China right now to move forward with digital currency and electronic payment reforms. In the past couple of weeks, we've seen 84 patents pushed through or filed by the People's Bank of China. And this is going to create all sorts of opportunities for streamlining and improving efficiencies, especially in international trade. But it also helps solve problems like the so-called dirty fiat money. You know, there's a major effort gearing up to disinfect paper currency. And so you know, there are openings and opportunities here to move more quickly with some of the reforms.
Actually, that was the assessment of the Chinese president during this nationwide meeting, because he was talking about in the short term, of course, there will be impact, but in the long term, overall, the Chinese economy is, the situation is controllable. And he also talked about changing a crisis into opportunity, so that if that is done, then people can fulfill the socio-economic development targets of this year. So, Professor He, how do you foresee any potential adjustment to the goals that might be set out for the government work report if the two sessions are convened anyway? Keep it short, please.
Yeah, even though we have facing a lot of challenges, but I think basically China's economic, those basic aspects remain unchanged because we are the second biggest economy in the world, and also those potential and the resilience of the economy remain there. So after this virus has been contained or eventually over, I think those investment and consuming, all those potentials and those things will be coming out and quickly will pick up. So we are very optimistic about that. And also during this past 1 or 2 months, we also see those new economy, new industries also emerge. For example, those online,
right.
Those entertainment, those online education. So all those things, these new industries also coming out. So this shows, and plus, government has introduced a lot of new policies. For example, reduce those burdens for those SME and also tax rebates. Those economic, those provincial policies will also work out, I think, for those entrepreneurships.
Okay. Well, we'll keep our eyes open and watch the situation very closely and see how China could possibly catch up after a relatively sluggish start of the year. Well, many thanks to Josef Mahoney joining us from Tennessee, the U.S., and Professor Wenping joining us here in Beijing. And with that, we come to the end of this edition of The Point with me, Li Xin. As always, you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter using the handle The Point with LX. Download the application called CGTN to watch the show on your mobile devices, or go to YouTube and look for CGTN The Point. Thanks for watching. You've got The Point.